Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim ben Pesach, and we have with us again the great David ben Moshe. On this program, we're going to tell you the latest from today. The Harris-Biden administration is threatening an arms embargo against Israel. This is several weeks before the election. Can you imagine after the election what they're going to do? Before the election, when they need Jewish votes, and there are a lot of evangelical Christians that vote on the basis of Israel. Can you imagine what they plan to do after the election if this is what they're doing right now? They are so committed to destroying Israel, and we're going to tell you why they want an arms embargo. They literally want Israel to die. I mean, they literally want Israel to be eliminated. Together with the political left in general. You know, Kamala Harris, she is with those demonstrators on those college campuses that are screaming death to Israel. She agrees with them. And so does her self-hating Jewish husband. But anyway, we're going to get into all the details and why this is urgent that we defeat Kamala Harris. It's going to happen soon. And, you know, the election's coming soon. And we'll speak to you about the details. And David always has important things to bring up as well. But first of all, this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, complete recovery for Sharon Mitman, Shlomo ben Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Reuven ben Shoshana, Ruth bat Sarah, and all ill, any Jew or righteous Gentile who's ill, Hashem should give them Refuah Shlema, should give them complete recovery. Because obviously I can't put everyone in the world on that list, but I wish I could, on the list of people we pray for. And this is all also dedicated to Ilui Neshamot for Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zeb Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Rab Mir Kahana, Rab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mittman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Well, Channel 12 News in Israel is reporting that and that's a left-wing station in Israel, they're reporting that the Harris-Biden administration now are threatening to impose an arms embargo on Israel. And when asked about it at the news conference, the State Department spokesman, White House spokesman wouldn't deny it. They wouldn't deny it. They just said there'll be consequences unless Israel changes its policies in Gaza and Lebanon. Openly blackmailing Israel. The real objective right now is to prevent Israel from striking Iran's nuclear bomb-making program and Iran's oil facilities. They want to prevent that from happening. Now, one of the things they say is if you attack the oil facilities, the price of oil will go up because Iranian oil will be taken off the market. That would be the best thing you could do for American energy production. If foreign oil becomes expensive, American producers can produce far more oil. Yes, maybe for several weeks, there'll be a little pain. And by the way, it won't last more than several weeks at the most. But there'll be a little bit pain. There'll be a little pain, but just for several weeks. But the long-term implications are this will give a huge boost. Whenever things like that happen, you take Iranian oil off the market, you're giving a boost to American energy producers because there's more of a need for energy because of that. They need to go to new sources, and there aren't that many new sources in the world. America was providing, but the Kamala Harris, late Joe Biden administration did everything they could to destroy America's energy industry and make us as dependent as we can on foreign oil, especially on Muslim oil. And they don't want the Iranian oil to be touched. They don't want the Iranian oil fields to be touched so that America could produce more oil instead. I mean, this scum, and it's an insult to scum. You know, I mean, today, maybe I'll go into this later, a fight that I had with a neighbor of mine today about this. If I forget, maybe David, maybe you can remind me. Because I
sure will.
Okay. The Harris-Biden administration is demanding that Israel not strike Iran's nuclear bomb-making program. That means Iran will have nuclear bombs. Can you imagine what a catastrophe? This is the policy of this administration. Donald Trump said Israel should strike Iran's nuclear bomb-making program. And which is what we spoke about on last week's program. Donald Trump is in favor of Israel striking the nuclear bomb-making program. But Kamala Harris, late Joe Biden administration, are blackmailing Israel not to do it, warning them not to do it. And these are the defenders of the Ayatollahs. That's who you have. That's who the Democrats have become, defenders of the Ayatollahs. And no, it's not just a threat to Israel. Remember that Iranians have massacred many American soldiers and chant death. Before they chant death to Israel, the first thing they chant at their demonstrations is death to America. Remember, America is the big Satan and Israel is the little Satan. And you want to put nuclear bombs in the hands of these lunatics? This is the foreign policy that you want? And then they say, Donald Trump, oh, he's dangerous. Donald Trump is dangerous? Are you kidding me? You talk about dangerous. They're going to put nuclear bombs in the hands of the Iranian Muslim Nazi lunatics. The sponsors of terrorism all over the world, they want to put nuclear bombs in their hands. Dangerous. This is suicidal. And then they blackmail Israel not to strike. The nerve of them to tell Israel to sit back and accept a nuclear holocaust, the danger of a nuclear holocaust, when the Iranians promised to do that. The nerve. And you self-hating Jews, if you vote for these criminals, for Kamala Harris, you vote for Kamala Harris. And Tim Walz, who says that Donald Trump is weird. I mean, another thing they're demanding, they're saying that Israel has to stop fighting against the Arab terrorists in Lebanon and in Gaza. The nerve of these people to blackmail Israel like this. And of course, they're threatening an arms embargo. Israel should not be getting arms from the United States or so-called foreign aid. Israel can produce her own weapons and should be. It's well overdue. It's long overdue that Israel does this. But this is the situation you get yourself into when you have people who are bought off. Do you know they do not promote Israelis to positions like general and the chief of staff without American approval? Israel is like a puppet of the State Department and the Pentagon. And let me tell you something. If you're a patriotic American, you don't like the Pentagon and the State Department, okay? Because they're not patriots. They go to the school, they go to Harvard and Yale and Princeton and all these schools, and they come out hating this country. That includes the generals. That includes the affirmative action generals that we have in charge, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, all these other generals. Not one of them is an American patriot. Not one of them. They're all traitors to the United States. And just look what they do to American soldiers, the brainwashing that they put American soldiers under. We have to love Muslims. We have to be transgender. We have to... unbelievable the things that they do, that they indoctrinate people with. Now, whatever your position is on those issues, the American military has no right to be indoctrinating American soldiers with left-wing propaganda, and that is what they do. And they're the ones who tell Israel who they could promote. And of course, they demand left-wing, politically correct generals in Israel too. And so the heads of the Israeli military are all traitors to Israel. That's the establishment. Let me explain something to you, okay? Being an American patriot does not mean supporting the United States government. If you're a patriot, you cannot support the United States government because the government is the enemy of the United States of America. And I'm talking about the real America, the America of the Founding Fathers. The only America that's worth being patriotic about is the America of the Founding Fathers, not the America of the late Joe Biden and the news media and Hollywood and Kamala Harris. That's not America. That's the destruction of America.
The fish rots from the head down, and we have corruption up and down the line. These people are there just to serve themselves, and the American people are an annoyance, which is why it's always other things first, Americans last.
And let me tell you something, because a lot of evangelical Christians and a lot of Orthodox Jews think, are you to be pro-Israel? That means you got to be pro-Netanyahu and pro-government. No, 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 no. That's not pro-Israel. Pro-Israel means you're against Israel giving up anything. Pro-Israel means that you want the whole land of Israel to be given to the Jewish people the way the Bible says. That's pro-Israel. Not Netanyahu, who gives away everything, who's too chicken to respond, that coward, that disgrace, who's too chicken to respond when he has a golden opportunity to destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making program, and he's too chicken to do it because the late Joe Biden woke up from his nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and told him, I don't want you doing that. No. Just like being a patriotic American does not mean supporting the late Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, that communist Kamala Harris. That's not being a patriotic American. Being a true supporter of Israel does not mean supporting the traitor government in Israel, because the government in Israel is as treasonous as the government in America. Both of them are traitors, traitor governments. And I got news for you. In Europe, the governments are all traitors too. They're all traitors because the establishment is controlled by the media, the multi-billionaires, the national corporations. Those are the people with power in this world. They have money, they have power, they have the media, they have access to all the power. The ordinary, average, patriotic citizen has no power, has no real say. And everything they tell him is a lie. And he goes along with it because he doesn't know any better. He goes to an education system that they control. If he goes to the military, they control the military. If he watches anything on the media, they control the media. They control the internet. They censor him on the internet. If he's a true patriot, they censor everything he says on the internet. So that's not patriotism to support government leaders. The opposite. That's like saying, in 1776, the true patriots would have been the people who are loyal to the British Crown. You're not allowed to be against the British Crown. That's true. And by the way, the people who are loyal to the British Crown called George Washington and the American revolutionaries traitors. They were called traitors. How dare you be against the British Crown? The United States would never have been created if we listened to that mentality. And the United States will be destroyed if we listen to that mentality. And Israel, God forbid, will face unbelievable catastrophe, the danger of another Holocaust if we listen to that mentality. You should have principles that you base your decisions and your positions on principles, that you want certain things to be done. That's what you should base it on. Not supporting leaders in positions of power who for years have been betraying their country. And so the United States government is demanding that Israel commit suicide, that Israel let the terrorists in Lebanon flourish again, that in Gaza, and let the Iranians build nuclear bombs, and let the Iranians continue to have their... do you know that Israel, in several hours, can destroy Iran's entire economy? Take out their oil fields, take out their electricity grid, destroy their whole economy, send them back to the Stone Age. In several hours, the Israeli Air Force can do that. That Israel certainly can do. I don't know if they can destroy the entire nuclear program in Iran now because it's now deep underground. I don't know if they could. I do believe they could do some serious damage to it, and they should. I don't know if they could destroy the whole thing. They could set them back, but I don't know if they could destroy the whole thing. But the economy in Iran, they could destroy the whole economy. And what a blow that would be to Islamic international terrorism. That would be a big blow. But these two supporters of terrorism, Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden and that jerk from Minnesota, Walz, they support the Muslim terrorists. Yes, they support the Muslim terrorists. Did you see Walz trying to show
he was a man? So he went hunting with a shotgun, and it was videotaped. He couldn't get the shell into the shotgun.
First of all, let me just say, Kamala Harris and Walz said, we're gun owners. Why? We don't want to ban guns. Of course they don't want to ban guns from wealthy, powerful people. They'll always have guns. Just like the criminal will always have a gun that they can get, the hot guns they can get from the street. There are millions of illegal guns on the streets. Criminals always have access to firearms. And the wealthy Hollywood people and the political people and all the other hypocrites and phonies that want to ban guns from decent people, they'll always have access to guns. Of course she owns a gun. She doesn't want you to have one, though. Anyway, now the New York Nazi Times is reporting that Bibi, we call him Bibi, that Bibi has agreed not to strike Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. That's what the Harris-Biden administration leaked this to the New York Nazi Times, saying to the New York Nazi Times that Bibi has already agreed that he's not going to strike Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. God forbid. I hope that's not true, and I hope, by the way, the overwhelming majority of Israelis want him to strike. They want him to strike. They know that this is a matter of life and death, is a matter of survival. They know that this is insane to let this go on until they build a nuclear bomb. They know this is crazy. They want him to take action. And the best and the most vigorous military action possible, the most aggressive military action possible. The majority of Israelis, even in leftist polls, show the overwhelming majority of Israelis want an Israeli strike on everything in Iran. You name it, they want Iran. They want to blast Iran back to the Stone Age. They want that, the average Israeli. But Netanyahu, according to this, Bibi Netanyahu has already agreed not to strike. That's what the New York Nazi Times claims. And their sources are from the White House and the State Department. So we'll see what happens. He's going to be under pressure from the people of Israel. The people of Israel want him to strike, and Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden don't want him to. And why are they so concerned about protecting Iran? I mean, what is this tremendous concern about, just like Barack Hussein Osama wanted to protect Iran? You know, Netanyahu did order the Israeli military and the Israeli Air Force to strike 10 years ago, and they refused. They refused to obey his orders. The head of the Mossad and the Ramatkal, the chief of staff in Israel, refused to obey his orders. Can you believe this? Can you believe that they refused? Because they're under orders from the United States. Washington tells them what to do. And Washington said, no. Who is Washington? Washington, actually, it's more than 10 years ago, was when Obama was still president. They wanted to. He ordered them. They refused. No, the Americans say no. We can't do it. Meir Dagan, who was the head of the Mossad, immediately flew to America to tell the Americans that he was planning, that he wanted Israel to strike. He didn't want to notify Obama. Can you imagine? These are the people in charge of Israel's military and in charge of Israel's Mossad. Mossad is the CIA, the intelligence services that are not very intelligent. These are the people in charge. All traitors, all backstabbers. This is why we support Moshe Feiglin in the Zehut party. He's going to clean house. He wants to get them all out. And he is a good Jew. He's not a Kahanist. We go further than him. We would go further than him. He's not a Kahanist, but he's an honest, good Jew. He would make a very good prime minister. We support Moshe Feiglin. So here's the situation we're in. Now we got a situation where they're telling us that Israel can't strike first. Israel can't build Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. Another thing, that Israel has to accept the so-called Palestinian terrorist state, which of course is complete suicide. This is what they're telling us now. And they're blackmailing Israel, pressuring, blackmailing, squeezing Israel to do this with a leader who always gives in to blackmail. The only thing stopping him from immediately giving in to everything they demand is that the majority of the Israeli people don't want it. That's the only. So he has pressure, political pressure at home, and he has this foreign pressure from Kamala Harris and the late Joe Biden. Help us to Support the Hilltop youth so that we can wake the people of Israel up and get them to bring down these terrible leaders and replace them with real Jewish leaders. Help us to support the real Jewish heroes on the ground that are saving Israel from a Palestinian state. Help us with the Hilltop youth. That's the answer. Supporting the Jews in Israel who do have a backbone, who do believe in God, who do believe in the Bible, who put their lives on the line. They put their lives on the line every day together with their families and their children, women and children, their families. They live there on these remote hilltops to prevent the Arabs from taking over. They are the hope we have for saving Israel. Help us. You know, when I got out of prison, the early 90s, and right after my leader, Harav Mir Kahana Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo, was murdered, and the Kahanas movement was banned in Israel, and my leader, Rabbi Kahana, was murdered, and it looked like the end of the world, and I said, what happened to idealism? What happened? Everybody's going to go along with this, and there's no idealism left. There's nothing. Then came the Hilltop Youth in the 1990s. It started in the 1990s, the Hilltop Youth. They had communities on hilltops in the 1990s that today, those old Hilltop Youth communities, because they're now, by the way, they're now the parents of the new Hilltop Youth that we deal with today, because now second and third generation of Hilltop Youth. But the Hilltop Youth of those days, those hilltop communities became accepted settlements eventually. Eventually became accepted settlements with hundreds and even thousands of people in each settlement. That's what happened, because they stubbornly refused and kept coming back, and eventually those turned into settlements now. Those are now settlements in Judea and Samaria. And so now you have a new breed of Hilltop Youth that are going further and pushing the border further to push the Arab terrorists back and prevent them from taking over Judea and Samaria. This is the battle that we have to win. This is the battle that we have to win. There is there's no excuse. There's something all of us can do. We can make a difference. We can make a difference. In Israel, we do have a voice, the Hilltop Youth and Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party. We have someone in Israel. We have people in Israel that will represent what we want. We do have a voice. It's not a lost situation if we decide to do something. If we really care enough to do something, we can make a difference. And everybody should do that. Everybody should get involved and make a difference. Let me give you an opportunity, first of all, to help the Hilltop Youth. And then I want to tell the story about the argument I got into with my neighbor. I know David remembers everything. So that's why I said to, because I forget. I just get into these things and then I forget what I was going to say. But David, he remembers everything. All right. If you want to help the heroic Hilltop Youth and you want to make a difference at such a critical time, because it says in the Bible, for Israel, I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. This is for the Jews and the righteous Gentiles. This is your chance to make a difference and do something really good for the world, to help really good people, the best, the most magnificent idealists. There are two ways you can help the heroic Hilltop Youth. One is you can go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org. Now, the page is in Hebrew, that's true, but on top, you have a donate button in English, a big donate button in English. You just click on that donate button on top, and you can easily and conveniently donate to the heroic Hilltop Youth. That's very easy to do online. Again, you go to hayamin.org, our Hebrew main page. The second way, if you don't want to do it online, if you want to do it through the regular mail, you just make a check or money order out to J.T.F. and you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. And then you can make a real difference here. Now, let me go into, I'll tell you about this incident that happened today. You know, I go shopping early in the morning, 6:45, 7 in the morning, I go shopping. And I shop frequently because I buy fruits and vegetables. Most of my diet is fruits and vegetables, most of it. Of course, I also have to have protein. I have to have other things. So I eat fish, and once in a while I have chicken, and I have other things that provide me with protein. But anyway, because I eat fruits and vegetables, a lot of fruits and vegetables, I want them to be fresh all the time. So I go shopping, like at least 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more, but at least 3 or 4 times a week I go shopping so that I get all my fresh produce. And so I wake up early in the morning as soon as the supermarket opens. I have a supermarket here that opens at 7 in the morning. I wake up, I wake up early every morning anyway, and and at 6:45, I'm out of the house on my way to the supermarket. And there's a neighbor of mine that I usually meet early in the morning because there's an early morning mass at his church. And so he goes to early morning mass. And so before 7 in the morning, we see each other all the time. And I know him for many, many years. And, we say good morning and, how are you? Good morning, and so on. All of a sudden, today, I walked past his house. I couldn't believe what I saw. A Harris Waltz sign. This giant sign, Harris Waltz. A big sign for the communist Kamala Harris. And for Tim Walz. For Tim Walz. Who says he calls everybody weird. By the way, I've never seen anyone as weird as him. But anyway, I see this big sign. So he comes out of the house as usual. He says, good morning. And I don't answer him. And so he thought I didn't hear him. He says, good morning. He said louder. I said, I heard you. I said, I don't want to say good morning. He said, what do you mean? What's with you this morning? What's going on? I pointed to the sign. He said, because I have a sign like this, he said, you don't want to say good morning? He said, that's not being a very good neighbor. I said, let me tell you what's not being a good neighbor. Supporting people who want to destroy everything that's good in the world and bring evil into the world. First of all, you want to destroy my people in Israel if you're supporting these two Jew-hating criminals. That's number one. And number two, you're destroying your own country, the United States of America, as well. He said, the reason I support them, I also said to him, and I said, you go to mass every morning? I said, what are you praying for? Well, you like what they stand for? They support partial birth and live birth abortions. They support the transgender agenda. You like that? That's what you pray for in the church? What are you praying for? What are you going to? You're going to mass and you're voting for them and putting signs on your lawn for them? So he said, he said, you don't know. He said, you see, you're not up to date on the latest what the Holy Father has said. He said, we must be humane to the immigrants that come to our country. And he said, they are humane. He says, Donald Trump is not humane. He wants to deport all of them. I said, well, God willing, I said, God willing that Trump wins. I said he would deport. I said we should be so lucky if he deports all of them. I hope he keeps his word and does deport all of them. I said humane. I said I'm the most humane person in the world. I want to kick all of them out. That's the most humane solution. All of them should go. All of them should be thrown out. And I said people who support them in the country who are citizens should be thrown out together with them. That's humane. He said, I never knew this was that you like this. He said, this is crazy talk. Oh, I said, oh, you mean preventing people from illegally invading the United States and crossing into the United States illegally is crazy talk? Enforcing the laws of the United States of America and keeping a border, having a real border is crazy talk to you? That's crazy talk? He said, what you're saying is not humane. He said, you should read the Hebrew prophets and see. They said you should be concerned about the orphan and the widow. This is what he's telling me. I should be concerned about the orphan and the widow. I said, I am very concerned about the orphan. I'm very concerned about the widow being raped and the orphan being murdered or kidnapped by these criminals, these criminal gangs that come across the border and giving them fentanyl and drugs. They're criminals. He said, well, we don't have really much to talk about. I said, that's exactly why. That's why I didn't want to say good morning, I said. He said, you don't tolerate other points of view, other opinions. I said, no, that's not true. I said, I'm friends with people who have different opinions, but it depends what the subject is. If someone's other opinion is that they want genocide against the Jews of Israel, which is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are promoting, And if somebody's other opinion is that they want is that they want to destroy Western civilization, that is beyond, that's too much. Once you threaten the lives of, you're threatening my life and you're threatening the lives of everyone that I love and care about. I said, that's more than just an ordinary difference of opinion. That's way beyond that. That's way beyond that. You should be ashamed of yourself. You go to church and go to mass, and this is what you pray for. And what I said, this is what you want, and you put this on your lawn. You should be ashamed of yourself, I told him. Anyway, and he said, you should be ashamed of yourself. You call yourself a religious Jew, and this is the way this is the way you speak about other human beings. I said, they're not human. People who bring fentanyl into the United States to drug our children and cause 100,000 deaths from fentanyl every year, that's these drug gangs, that's human beings? That's not human. That is not human. Anyway, so now, so I was a little bit I think David saw that I was in a little bit of a bad mood when we started the show because it just got me, I don't know, the whole thing just got me, I shouldn't, I know there are people like that in this world, and I shouldn't let it get to me. It's just very irritating.
The thing is, he lived next door to you. Didn't he know the show you did for years?
He doesn't live next door to me. He doesn't live next door to me. He lives about a block away from me. And he did not know. Apparently, he didn't know. I didn't ask him if he knew about the show or didn't know about the show. I never asked him. I never discussed it with him. I just know that he always said good morning to me. And, everybody loved my mother. My mother, both of my parents were loved by everybody in the neighborhood because they were always wonderful people. So everybody always used to say, good morning, and always would speak to my parents. So I, as their son, I was friendly with everybody in the neighborhood, everyone who's human. I mean, I was friendly with everyone, which is a certain percentage of people in the neighborhood. But anyway, I was, people who understand will understand. But anyway, I was friendly with all the humans in the neighborhood. And, he and his family, I thought they seemed to be nice Irish family. So all I did is I just said good morning and hello and how are you, and that was it. We never spoke about politics or anything like that. We never spoke about those things. And by the way, this is not just politics, okay? These leftist maniacs are on a war path to destroy everything good. This is more than just politics. When you teach 5-year-old boys that they should be girls, that's not politics. But anyway, so, what can I say? That's the way it goes. So, I made another enemy today. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But, I'm sorry, I can't. No, that I just can't. I can't be part of that. I can't be, well, okay, so we have differences. It's nothing wrong with political differences. No, not this. This is beyond that. Okay? I'll tell you an example of political differences that I do talk. Like, I know people who support in my neighborhood who supported Trump, and I supported Ron DeSantis. That's a political difference. I still speak to those people, even though I'm annoyed at them too, because Ron DeSantis was better. I'm annoyed at them too, but them I'll speak to at least. Because I know that they don't have evil intentions. They're stupid, but they don't have evil intentions. So them I'll speak to. I mean, them I'll be nice to. But someone who supports supports that communist beast from San Francisco, that filthy beast who opened her legs to everyone in San Francisco, that low-life, filthy, stinking hooker. She's a low-life hooker, okay? She's the scum of the earth. She has no principles. She is pure evil, together with her self-hating Jewish husband. And people want to make her president of the United States, God forbid? That communist beast? Moving right along. Anyway, so that's no big deal. No big deal. What can I say? David, it's your turn. You're on.
Well, last week I told you about an Iranian table tennis player, 14 years old. Well, the whole Iranian team came out of nowhere, and from out of nowhere, within nowhere, came this 14-year-old. After I reported that, I sat down to watch more of the matches, and his next round, he faced the number one player in the world, of course, from China, and he beat him. 14 years old from Iran, and he beats the number one player in the world. And then the next day, he beats the number three player in the world from China, because the top five are all from China. And that's as many as China will allow on to play international tournaments. But probably their second tier is slightly better than everybody else's first tier. But this 14-year-old came out of nowhere. I didn't know they had a training program like this in Iran. This kid is amazing. He doesn't have hair on his face. He's only 14. He's probably just starting to shave a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see what he does later on. And then one of the other Iranian players beat another top 10 player that same day. I couldn't believe what I was seeing here. China has special training programs for this. They put two tables side by side with one net across. So now instead of 5x9, your table is 10x9, and they have to cover the whole 10 feet. Their training regimen is at least 6 hours a day. Top coaches. That's why they're the best in the world. And Iran comes out of nowhere and humiliates China, because China, if one Chinese beats another Chinese man, it's okay. But if they lose to a non-Chinese, they really get it when they get back, because that's a disgrace to them.
By the way, I don't like this whole story, and I'll tell you why. Because the Iranians don't do this because they care about table tennis. The Iranian regime does this because they want people to say, oh, Iran isn't that bad. Look at this. They have 14-year-olds that play tennis so well. Look how nice Iran is. This is very dangerous. Okay? These totalitarian regimes use sports for propaganda purposes. Okay? Their goal is to destroy the Western world. That's their goal.
Remember, Hitler did that with the 1936 Olympics.
Right. Absolutely.
And when Jesse Owens won, Hitler wouldn't congratulate him. He walked out of the stadium.
Right. And not only the case of Jesse Owens, what about the famous boxing? What was the famous boxing match with the German Nazi versus the...
Oh, Max Schmeling and Joe Louis.
You see what I mean? David remembers it all, remembers everything. Anyway, yeah. David remembers everything, but no, so this is all propaganda, and the purpose of propaganda. This is why we disrupted Soviet cultural events. We didn't want the Soviets to have audiences walking away saying, oh, the Soviets, they're not so bad. You see, they're not so bad. And that's what the Iranians want you to believe. That's why they do this. That's why they invest in these things, because they want you to believe they're not so bad. And by the way, if you're that impressed with the Iranian people because of this, how would I say this in a way that's politically correct? How can I say what I want to say now in a way that's politically correct? Okay.
Iranians are Muslims.
Let me put it this way.
All non-Muslims.
Yes, but let me that's true. But let me put it to you this way, in terms of being impressed by wow, they must be a great people if they can do it. There's another people that wins all the boxing championships for many, many years, for decades. Certain group of people, I don't want to say who, certain group of people, wins all the boxing championships, okay? But they're not very impressive on the battlefield. That they don't win. They don't do well on the battlefield. But in boxing champions, they win. So don't be fooled by this stuff, okay? Don't be fooled even for a second by this stuff. Iran, in the Iran-Iraq war, was terrible. Iranian soldiers, the Iranian army was awful. 2 million Iranians and Iraqis were killed in that war by their fellow Muslims in the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s. In the end, they lost. Their army was obliterated, so they didn't have anybody left. So they sent 6-year-old boys 5- and 6-year-old boys carrying Korans charging into Iraqi artillery. That's what they did in the end, the Ayatollahs.
And through Iraqi minefields.
So this is right. So this is that's Iran, the cruelest, most evil regime, just barbaric, primitive, barbaric monsters. And primitive people. Primitive people can win boxing championships. And primitive people can win all types of sports events. They can come out on top on that. But when it comes to the real test, when you have an organized military campaign, the Arab world, the Muslim world, they outnumbered the Jews 100 to 1 in 1967. And the Jews beat them in 6 days and quadrupled in size. The Jews! I don't see many Jews winning Olympics events, do you?
No.
Okay, I mean, there was Spitzer, you remember in 1972. And so once in a while, you'll have some Jews that do well in the Olympic event. But generally speaking, Jews, the reason the Jews won in 1967 is because they're brilliant. They're brilliant, just like with the beepers. No other country could pull off what Israel pulled off with those beepers. Hundreds of beepers going off simultaneously all over Lebanon and Syria. Come on, no country in the world could pull that off. Okay? The Jews are a brilliant people. God chose the Jewish people for a reason, to be a light unto the nations, a holy nation, nation of priests, and they're a brilliant people. Okay, but you don't see many Jews winning boxing championships. And you don't see many Jews winning, but in wars, when you put a uniform on them, a Jewish soldier is the most dangerous soldier you could face in a battlefield because they have brains. And the same thing was true when the ancient Roman Empire had to bring in, from dozens of countries, they had to bring in legions to try to squash the Jewish rebellion. I mean, the Jews were tremendous warriors because of their brains. The Jews are the ones who invented guerrilla warfare there. I mean, that was the beginning of guerrilla war. The Jews used guerrilla warfare against the ancient Greeks, Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire, and defeated empires. I mean, it was just incredible. In the end, what brought them down? When they started fighting with each other. That's what brought them down. But still. But anyway, so I just wanted to make that comment that let's not, God forbid, let's not say, oh, you see the Iranian, that's something to be impressed about. That's exactly what they want. And that's the worst possible result you could have from any of this. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry to go into all this.
Well, I watch the matches, and I don't care who wins. I watch for technique and strategy, and I could pick some of that up myself just by watching. But when I watch the Iranians doesn't matter who they're playing, I always root against them. And my heart just sank when they beat the Chinese. It was just awful. And in one of the matches, was it when the kid was playing or one of the others? They're all yelling because these were team events. They're sitting there yelling, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." There's no place for that in sports. Sports, if you're representing your country, you show a little nationalism, but the rest is all good sportsmanship. Also, I wanted to report that Elon Musk says if Donald Trump loses, this will be the last election America ever has. And of course, Elon Musk, he invented the Tesla. And I don't know if he's still, but for a while, he was the richest man in the world, even past Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. We're not the only ones that had hurricanes with flooding. In Southeast Asia, Thailand, Nepal had tremendous flooding from the monsoons. And little Nepal, Chaim always says little Israel. Well, little Nepal, it's another country that's tiny. Little Nepal offered twice as much money to each resident as the United States did to those poor people in Tennessee and North Carolina. But little money is not going to help. It will help a little, but it's not going to repair all the damage that was done. That took your livelihood away. That took your family life away. Everything is destroyed down there. And there's talk of just bulldozing everything. Well, in Thailand, the water was so deep that elephants drowned. Now, of course, the Asian elephant is not as big as the African elephant, but it's still a massive animal. And when they hold their trunk up, they're even the trunk is even higher, and still some drown because the water was so deep. I saw this man that owned an elephant, and he was crying over the body of the dead elephant who drowned in all the flooding there. And I always thought elephants could swim pretty good, but I guess it's hard to swim in raging waters that are going at about 25, 30 miles an hour. Because if the water is going fast enough, 6 inches of water is enough to knock a person down. Then I saw this. So I wanted to read this to you. A country run by banks will always be in debt. Healthcare run by big pharma will never cure disease. A state run by war will never know peace. A nation run by media will never know the truth. Then I saw this too. Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris. They've been in office 28 of the last 32 years. And they blame Trump for all our problems. And they're the ones that are claiming they have the solutions. Well, one of those people, well, actually two of them, Biden, who is no longer president. When North Carolina was suffering like that, he was on the beach sunning himself. Kamala Harris was attending fundraising dinners, but she's in effect acting president. And she says she has all the solutions. She's going to implement them on day one. She's in office now. There's still a few months to go. Why doesn't she start implementing her solutions now so we could all see how wonderful they are? And maybe that'll turn people around and want to vote for her, because some of the bigger polls are showing that Trump is starting to pull away from her. The polls that favor the Democrats show the race even, so you know that can't be accurate. But don't let this fool you. It's only a snapshot in time, and you don't know how honest these polls are. Anything is possible in this election. So make sure you get out and vote, and don't vote for Harris. And if you vote for some third-party candidate, you're just voting for Harris, because she's got all the big cities locked up. No matter how bad the big cities are, and they are garbage dumps, especially a city like Oakland, but San Francisco's not much better, and you still get the majority of city residents voting for the Democrat to continue what they have now.
But by the way, the majority of polls show Harris with a lead, with a slight lead. Majority of polls show Harris with a slight lead. She is ahead in most of the polls. Okay, I mean, I could go through them if you want. I mean, I remember even some of the figures. Majority of polls, she's ahead. So people better wake up fast. Okay.
Don't just go to vote. Take your friends with you.
This is, you better wake up and you better convince.
Get out and vote.
And you better convince people to vote for them as well. If you have friends, relatives, other people, make sure make sure they're convinced to get out and vote. Okay, because she according to the early polling, most of the polls show she's ahead. By the way, among early voters, 5% of Americans at the time we're doing the show have already voted. 5% already voted. And there was just an NBC poll shows 57% voted for Harris, 40% voted for Trump. Okay, so you know we better wake up fast here. There's a very big danger that she could win. Very big danger. And so we better get to work here. And a second thing I wanted to mention about Harris and her proposals and everything. Right now, she can close the border with executive order. Right now, she can solve the problem and just close the border. She issued 92, her and the late Joe Biden issued 92 executive orders reversing Trump's policies on the border. That's why you had the open border and the flooding of the border. She can close the border right now. She doesn't have to wait till Election Day. She can do it with the stroke of a pen right now. She doesn't need Congress. So she's lying. She's a liar. They want them to come in because they know they're going to vote for the Democrats if they become citizens. That's the real plan here. I'm sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. My last topic it's a pretty rough one. I got this pamphlet. I get it about every 6 weeks, and it has various guest writers. This month's for this 6 week period, this writer is a former sharpshooter, a sniper, and he trains military snipers and police snipers. And he became a lawyer, and he wrote about our out of control government. And he brought up various agencies and stunts they've pulled. I'm going to start with Brian Malinowski. You probably never heard of him. In fact, I'm sure you never heard of him unless you come from Arkansas. He was executive director of the Arkansas Bill and Hillary Clinton National Airport. So a medium-sized airport. It's not international, it's national. And he was a coin collector, but he also decided to collect guns eventually. And he would trade guns at gun shows, buy guns, sell guns. Now, if you sell guns, you don't need a license at a trade show unless you're making a living from it. If that's your source of income. If you're a collector, a hobbyist, you don't need a license. But if you want a license, it's only $65. So he would buy and sell and trade at the shows. Well, the ATF, also known as the KGB, they thought he was doing a little too much. So they put a GPS tracker on his car. I don't even know if he knew or if they got a warrant. They just did it. Followed him around, and they just thought he was doing a little too much. So one morning, they come banging on his door. 10 cars with agents pull up, local police and ATF agents. They come banging on his door. They cover all his security cameras. They turn off their body cameras. So he hears this banging on his door, and the security cameras went black. So he opens fire on them, and they return the fire and kill him. They take his wife outside, and they keep her outside for 4 hours in 34-degree temperature. She's in a nightgown. They won't even let her go in the house to go to the bathroom for a minute. So this is the KGB. This is not the ATF. This poor man who always obeyed the law, and she kept saying, "You probably have the wrong house. Let me see my husband." They wouldn't let her see her husband. She kept saying, "You probably have the wrong house." But it was the right house. And notice how they covered up all their body cams. That was supposed to, everything they do is supposed to be taped, but they shut everything off. When the FBI invaded Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's house down there, they were given orders that if there's any resistance, open fire. That was the FBI. Flanagan, Brannigan, and Iskovich. These used to be the cream of the crop, the Secret Service, the FBI, ATF, maybe a little notch below. These were the cream of police officers. Now they're the Keystone Cops. If you don't know what the Keystone Cops were, during the silent era, they were these goofy cops that were always falling off the truck on the way to make a rescue. They were always clumsy, tripping on each other, banging into each other, falling off a pier. It was Mack Sennett comedies from around 1915 to probably around 1920. Roger Stone, a Republican operative, put some false information on WikiLeaks about Hillary Clinton. And they came and raided his house. You remember the raid on Roger Stone's house? 30 cars of agents showed up. I guess his house is on either lake or the ocean. They even had boats with armed officers pointing their guns at the house. They battered the house in, and he had, once again, his wife in a nightgown, his children in a nightgown, and they yanked him out. There was this Mark Houck and his son praying at a Planned Parenthood committee because he wanted right to life. He wasn't blocking entrances. It's against the law to block an entrance, but he was just praying there. And so one of the Planned Parenthood men came out and started screaming and cursing in his son's face. Son was a little boy. So Hal pushed the guy down, or pushed him away, and he fell down. And police came, and they didn't press any charges because they saw the security camera. They saw exactly what happened. So no charges were filed, but that wasn't good enough for the federal government. Of course, this is under Biden's government. They looked to indict him, and he wrote to them, or he called them and said he's willing to turn himself in. That wasn't good enough for the KGB. They came banging on his house at 6:30 in the morning with a battering ram, agents all around. They went in, pulled him out with his wife and 7 children screaming, because he really did believe in right to life, so he had 7 children. They put a waist bracelet around him, you know, the kind of handcuffs that goes around your waist, and he was in handcuffs. They took him to a federal building. He sat like that for 6 hours. Finally, when his trial came up, the jury found him not guilty. So we have out of control agencies, these 3-letter agencies. They're all under the main banner of KGB because there's no difference now. This is the land of the free because of the brave. This isn't the land of the free anymore. You're not free to come and go as you please. You're not free to say as you want. Everything has to be measured. And if you step over that line, they'll come and get you. Just look at what happened on January 6th. People that were just there in the street get arrested 2-3 years later. Merrick Garland, who's head of the Justice Department, they said he was a moderate judge when they put him up, when Obama put him up for the Supreme Court. Well, he went crazy, left-wing crazy, when he became the Attorney General. And the Justice Department is under him. He's the head guy. He's the guy you blame for all this action. Of course, his subordinates all think like he does. So it shows he was no moderate. He was crazy left-wing. And then one last one. Craig Robertson, a 75-year-old Air Force retiree, a veteran, who was probably had some dementia. They arrested him, or they tried to arrest him for threatening people in the government. Well, they shot him. And they too had their body cams off. No, they had their body cams on, but they won't release it. They won't show anybody. All these the 3-letter alphabet agencies, they're supposed to report to Congress. Congress can rein them in by cutting off their funding. But there is no Congress. It's all political showmanship. Each side tries to one-up the other. Each side tries to investigate the other. And Congress is not doing their job at all. In fact, I think there's a rule. You have to check your brains at the door when you go into the Capitol building. And I also just want to close with something. I can guarantee there's no life on other planets, because if there was life on other planets, we'd be sending them money. Chaim?
Excellent point. In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F. until next week, this is Chaim ben Pesach, and for David ben Moshe, Shalom.